Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bevvies with the Boys. We are now on episode 10, which I cannot believe somehow we've made it to double digits. My name is Munch. I'm joined by Dagda. We are the boys. And for Bevvies today, we are joined by Fnatic's brand new coaching staff. It's YamatoCannon and Tolki. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this earlier episode, because this is a global episode as well. Obviously, Yamato, you're over in Berlin, I believe. We've got Tolki tuning in from Japan as well. Guys, welcome to the episode. Thank you for joining us. Do you want to give us a quick hello, quick intro for yourselves, and let us know what you're drinking tonight? Yamato, we'll start with you.
I didn't plan to drink because I'm detoxing. Well, not detoxing. Sounds like I'm a raging alcoholic, but I'm in a phase where I'm not drinking due to the season starting, and I know that Christmas is going to be very heavy-handed, so I'm pacing myself. But my choice of drink usually is gin and tonic, and I brought a bottle just to show it off and to pretend that I'm one of the cool boys.
Mate, I can appreciate
Hendrick's
that.
with me. Oh, look at you! You come prepared. So usually that's my drink. What was the rest of the question? Was that it?
Just sort of to introduce yourself a little bit. We'll come back to it. We'll do a bit of backstory talk. Tolki, what are you drinking today or tonight for you over there?
Yeah, so for me it's 11 p.m. I live in Tokyo, Japan. So here, beer is very big. So I got everything from the very small Kirin to a bit of a bigger Asahi Super Dry. Then we can attack, the premium malt made by Suntory before moving, to the very famous Sapporo Black Label before finishing up with an Ebisu. And did you know, like almost all those brands were part of the same company back in time, like 100 years ago. The Sapporo, Ebisu, and Asahi got created. They fused before World War II, and because they got a monopoly on beer in Japan, they got split up after World War II. And now those are made by the same brand, but the other ones are independent. But they all make great beer, and this is the newest one, so I'll start with the premium malts. They're, the new kids on the blocks.
She would be impressed or worried.
I'm not sure. I'm a coach.
I did not know they were all the same brand, but you learn something new every day.
Forget about League of Legends. Let's just talk about beer. Right? We're just going down this rabbit hole.
I'm definitely okay with that. But Dagda, what are you drinking tonight, mate?
Yeah,
I keep saying tonight. It's 2:00.
I know, yeah. I'm on a Havana Club, the 7-year rum.
Nice.
Decided to pick that one up for myself, but I know that Yamato's detoxing, but we're on week 10 of Bevvies with the Boys, and yeah, there's no detox here.
Yeah, we're detoxing by drinking at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm on the Doom Bar today, and then I've got my Hendricks as a backup, or maybe I'll just drink it in solidarity with Yamato after my first one. We'll have to see. So let's take a moment here, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to kind of intro yourselves and give us a bit of backstory. Yamato, we'll start with you because I kind of segued off of yours already. You've had kind of a bit of a crazy journey. Obviously, for some of the newer viewers, they might not know your history of coaching within Europe for a very long time. Working on TSM, a different kind of TSM to maybe some people are thinking.
TSM.
But then you obviously you were on the LEC. You went over to be the first Western coach in Korea, if I'm not mistaken, or in LCK at very least. Can you talk us through that journey a little bit and give us some of the cliff notes of your story in esports so far?
Honestly, you nailed it. You brought up all the details. Now, I've been playing this game for soon 11 years. I used to compete. I played in the first season ever of the EULCS under the name, Dragonborns was the team. They still owe me money to this day because esports was pretty terrible back then. But
it really was the Wild West.
Yes, it was definitely the Wild West. And I continued. I loved the game. I wanted to compete always. I had to take a little break. And when you take a break as a pro player, players don't like it. You need to reprove yourself. And my idea was to jump into the coaching world just because I wanted to be in a gaming house, because my father was very against gaming. I had to hide all my life that I'm playing and competing. Like my journey to becoming a pro was me playing on a shitty MacBook I got from school, getting burn marks on my thighs because I was like hiding in bed playing like this pretty much on 20 FPS. I was playing like this, climbing the ladder, and I just wanted to escape to a gaming house. And I had some buddies over in MIM. I was talking to Mithi, Nuktak. They were like, you should coach. Because Riot announced that they're going to make coaching like a paid role. I was like, well, money. Money. That's something that I've been promised in different teams but never received. But Riot is promising money. So it's like, I got some
Slightly more
There's,
official.
yes, there's some precedent here that I might get paid. I have some push here. So I just went for it, and my idea was, okay, I'm going to be in a gaming house. I'm going to practice with the team, and then I'm gonna do solo queue all night, and then just become, level up again. But I fell in love with coaching, and I've coached ever since, and I'm not planning to stop. I have many years more in me, so it's all up to Riot Games to make sure that this game stays alive. So I'm looking at you, Riot Games.
So no pressure, Mark Merrill, but his career is on your shoulders right now. So moving over to you then, Tolki. Do you want to give us a bit of backstory for anyone that doesn't know you? Because obviously everyone's going to have heard your name right now because you just got announced by Fnatic, so everyone's going to be over the moon. For anyone that doesn't know your backstory prior to that, do you want to tell us some of the cliff notes, a bit of a synopsis of your story so far in esports?
So I'll go with the short route, which is already pretty long, because I'm 30 years older, and it's pretty much boomer status in esports. I started being into competitive gaming with fighting games when I was a teenager. Actually, I played fighting games for almost 10 years. I got a few top 8 at Stunfest more than 12 years ago. Then I started PC gaming with StarCraft 2, and started working with O-Gaming in France as a caster. But esports wasn't very professional. Just like Yamato, some people still owe me money from money I was doing from job I was doing from them at this time. So I moved back to a standard work environment. I was a consultant, and I worked as a video game producer at Ubisoft. Then 5 years ago, I was bored with my life and decided to move to Tokyo because, well, Tokyo is pretty great. And in Tokyo, I created an esports team that didn't really pan out. And then I started working remotely for Splice, T1, and now I will be moving to Berlin to work with Fnatic, so abandoning Japan, unfortunately.
So this is the first team that you are uprooting and properly getting into the gaming house and all of that for?
Well, in Japan, when I had my team, we had a gaming house and we're all there in person, but it was not the same level. It's going to be the same the first time, I'm really there in person with the team that's competing for the world title, which I've enjoyed when I was with Splice a year and a half ago, or with T1 in person a year ago.
Okay, cool. So I'm curious. I do just want to touch on the Fnatic stuff because obviously you guys now are working together. Have you guys ever worked together in the past? Did you already know each other? Did you guys kind of choose to work together, or has Fnatic hired you both separately? What kind of roles are you guys going to be filling as well?
On my end, when I was discussing with Fnatic, they were asking me if there's someone that I had in mind, and I was vouching and pushing for Tolki because, I checked his resume, and any sane person is going to see that me and him, on paper, match together perfectly. But to my content, they already told me, yeah, we already have him in consideration. No worries, we are doing our job as Fnatic. So it's from there. I guess our first interaction was, I remember Gary welcomed me to the LCK when I joined Sandbox. And that was a good first interaction, on Twitter, so to speak. And then we also have the same agent. So I guess that's how our worlds connect.
Yeah, past each other in the lobby on the Discord channel.
Pretty much.
Yeah, discreetly. But yeah, I feel like we'll make a very good duo. I realize I'm lacking experience, and that's all that Yamato is. He's the guy with the most experience in LEC. So I feel like we'll be able to bounce off each other. I'm more the, guy who comes a bit from the outside with a more data-driven approach, technical approach that needs, this experience and this experience to work directly with the players and to really be part of a team. So it was the same for me. When I heard I was considered with Yamato, I thought it was a great idea and a great pairing. So from the start, it sounded great.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was curious about, because I watched your interview with Ashley Kang, and you were kind of talking about how you're very much about the data-driven stuff. You're more about hey, if we want to make a decision about hey, there's these two things up in 2 minutes, what should we prioritize? That was your game plan and where you came in. Is that what you're hoping to bring to Fnatic, or are you now trying to explore more options and kind of get more involved with the player end of things?
I'll get more involved with the players, but I'll still, use this data I have at my disposal to inform our decisions. That's the whole point. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to move to coaching, is because by now all my workflow is automated. I can do research very, very fast. I have very powerful software libraries that can help me answer those questions. And I don't need to spend hours doing analytics now. I can focus on the coaching side of things while having access to this information. So that's why I'm going to Berlin. You know, I'm trying to fuse those two things together.
And then what was that like? Because you guys obviously were, I know, Tolki, you were the first foreigner that joined a Korean team. And then Yamato, you were the first head coach to join an LCK team as well. Like, what was that like kind of being the ones that kind of paved the way a little bit over in the LCK?
Gary was first, so you go first.
Really?
You're the icebreaker.
Yeah, it was nice, but being, you know, a remote analyst is not the same as being on person. On the ground with everybody. I was there in January to meet with the team, but because of the virus, I couldn't go back once in the whole year. It was planned that I would go every month. But since I was just working remotely, you know, I felt like I was doing my best to help the team, but it was hard, you know, to really connect with the players and even the coaches. It was hard, you know, to really get a personal connection. So, you know, I feel like I was a consultant the whole year more than a real part of the team. Yamato was the real, you know, first coach in Korea.
I can echo that sentiment that doing it apart was something that I was very careful about. So when we were apart, what I did was I opened dialogue with the players, but I didn't give them too much direct feedback in terms of what they need to improve on and what they need to work on. Instead, what I was doing was just building a very, very close relationship with the coaches that were on the ground and make sure that they convey my ideas in their way, so that the time when I land on location, we can start over from scratch in a sense, because the spring split was quite rough for Sandbox, and then the beginning of summer was also rough for us. Of course, I was very involved, but there is too many layers to go through. Like if I'm going to talk through Discord, through a translator, and they're going to translate, there's just too much information lost, and at the same time, the concentration isn't there. Even though I couldn't say the words, my demeanor and my physical language and how I am talking to people still matters a great deal. And I think it's
very
only
scary
natural.
in person. Just terrified in person.
I hope not. I hope not.
Certainly very confident. I can speak from experience here. I met Yamato one time in Switzerland.
Yes.
In my experience, Yamato is the kind of guy that won't necessarily be the person that talks the most in the room. But when Yamato speaks, he has quite a loud voice anyway, and he has such a powerful presence in the conversation that when it's one of those people, it's like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. When he speaks, everyone else shuts up, you know? So I can definitely, it makes sense to me that you're in the coach role, honestly. But I do want to ask you guys a little bit more about, going as a Westerner, essentially, going and trying to join a Korean organization, because there's got to be some growing pains there trying to get in. As you guys mentioned already, talking through translators and things, do either of you speak any Korean at all, or was it all exclusively through translators? Were there any other growing pains that people might not think of in trying to coach a Korean team as a non-Korean, essentially?
Well, on my end, I've noticed that when I am in situations where I am forced to learn how to communicate, I learn how to communicate faster. I noticed this surprisingly. I studied German, maybe in school for maybe 6 years, and I couldn't speak German at all. I could say eins, zwei, drei, and that's it. But when I was in the situation where I was staying at my girlfriend's parents' house for the first time, so they are Russian German, so they don't speak English, they only Russian and German. And in that situation, I need to be a person that, connects with my girlfriend's parents naturally. So I'm exposing myself in a situation where I'm forced to learn how to communicate somehow. And in the span of 1 month, I learned way more German than I did in 6 years of school. Sure, you could critique my ability to study. My grades were okay. I'm sure people are going to use that as a point of contention. But this was my mindset as well coming into Korea. And eventually, with time, there was, my English was very different in Korea than what it would be in a specific team. It's the same, in Vitality. In the beginning, I couldn't understand shit what Yuzuki was saying. because he had like this heavy Italian accent. And then we had Kabosha with a French accent, we had the Portuguese accent, we had the Polish accent. So it was a cocktail of language that eventually, cooked together to make a nice soup.
And then you five can all understand each other. No one else can understand any of you
pretty
anymore.
much. It's like I sometimes I had these podcast episodes with Jizuke, and people writing in the chat like, "What the hell is Jizuke saying?" I'm like, "Whoa, what do you mean? This is very clear to me." And after some time, there were some key Korean words that I learned, and it was far from perfect. I'm not trying to say that it was anywhere close to like true communication, because I did use my translator super much, but in Champion Select, there were key phrases and key questions that I had to ask the players. And also, it was very helpful that some of the players actually speak very good English, like On Fleek, Gorilla, Joker, Fantasy as well. All of them speak very, very good English. So this definitely helped super much in those situations where it was crunch time and we couldn't use our translator that much. But in terms of, just to bring it back to what you brought up in the first place, in terms of challenges, it was surprisingly, like in terms of, at least in the scope of Sandbox for me is like the gold standard for what an organization should be, because I came in there and they took care of everything. I could focus on the players and the game, where I should be, what I should eat. Everything was taken care of. I didn't need to think about any logistics at all. And that's something that I've never experienced before in esports. I told you my horror story of season 3 with Dragonborns. There's been improvement, but I think the level is on a whole nother level in Korea from my, of course, experience so far. I know there are horror stories about some orcs. Some people are going to like, what about this team? I know. My experience with Sandbox, that's it.
Well, I mean, that's good to hear a positive thought on that one. Tolki, what's your experience been like trying to integrate? Because it's not just Korean teams for you as well. Obviously, you had a team in Japan. Like coming over as a Westerner, was that? I mean, do you speak Japanese? Are you fluent in Japanese? So was it a little easier in that sense?
In Japan, I had there was a cultural and language barrier. I got better since I closed the team. It was already 3 years ago. But I could already speak with the players. I didn't need a translator with my team in Japan. In Korean, current grammar is literally the same as Japanese, but vocabulary and the pronunciation have nothing in common. So I tried studying Korean. I didn't really get that far, so I didn't use it. And in the end, I was working mostly with Hajin, the manager, who's also French, actually. And
oh, really?
So Hajin was with Misfits last year as an English-Korean translator, but she's also a French engineer like me. So that's how we met before in Berlin. And she was the one, doing the heavy lifting in terms of communication. I tried studying Korean, but it was very clear very fast. It was much easier, to rely on her. Like she knows League of Legends really well. She translated for a year for Gorilla in Misfits while he was learning English as well. So in the end, I didn't really need to make a big effort. And regarding the work culture, the communication culture, like Korea and Japan, of course, are different countries, very different countries, but they still have a lot of similarities in terms of work environment and how you communicate to other people, especially the ones who are hierarchical a bit higher than you. Mm-hmm. And I was used to this, I know how it works around here, and it was never really an issue. And by the way, Yamato, if you miss the French accent, I can speak like that the whole year.
C'est bien.
Yeah, c'est très bien.
Go for it, man. Go for it. It makes you feel at home.
I felt like I was on holiday in Paris for a second.
Yeah.
I was scared as an Englishman in Paris. That's the terrifying thing. They don't like us over there.
You get treated really well as an Irishman once they realize you're not British. Once then it's fine.
I'm not joking, by the way. I've been to Paris like 3 or 4 times, and every time someone there is an outright asshole to me on purpose. Like 100% of the time. It's honestly, it's kind of crazy. Nothing against French people at all. Just in my experience, Paris specifically, not a fan.
I'm a Parisian, but I understand.
They do not like me there, but maybe it's mutual.
What happened to you? You need to give us a story.
Well,
what happened?
I was looking for Yu-Gi-Oh cards one time.
Okay.
We
In Paris.
This
I
is why I
may
didn't
be a
wanna tell the
nerd.
story.
Okay. So I was there for All Stars in 2014. I think it was 2014. All Stars was in Paris. I went with my friend. So this is just as a fan years ago. So me and my friend Dan went to Paris. We spent a bunch of money to get flights and a hotel and all of this good stuff. We go to Paris. We got an Airbnb, and this is when Airbnb was like kind of newer, so not as many people were using it. We ended up with this Airbnb that was literally like across the street from the arena. It was fucking perfect. And we were avid Yu-Gi-Oh players. We went and played in tournaments and stuff at this time. So we were like, okay, while we're in Paris, we've got to go get some French Yu-Gi-Oh cards. We just wanted to get like a booster pack each, just as like a souvenir for the trip, right? And hopefully we would pull some rare card out of the booster and it'd be like the ultimate anecdote. So we Google where to find Yu-Gi-Oh cards in Paris, and there's like this huge department store that apparently also sells. They have like a section of card game stuff. So we go to this shop and we're looking around for ages to try and find these cards, and we can't find them. We've even found the MTG cards, but they don't seem to be together. It seems to be like, you know how some of these ones are like sorted by brands rather than sections? It was like that. And so we basically give up searching after a few minutes. We go and ask the guy at the till. And we're like, hey, do you guys sell Yu-Gi-Oh cards? Could you show us where they are? And he's like, no. We're like, no, you don't sell them. No, you won't show us. Like, what? And he's like, oh, we don't sell them. I'm like, oh, okay, no worries. Google said you did, but okay, fine, that's cool. So we start making our way towards the exit, and like 2 aisles down, this fucking huge Yu-Gi-Oh section that we missed, and we're like, bro, what the fuck? Like, there's no way he didn't know. He just didn't want to help us. It's just that simple. There's been a few other stupid little things. I don't know. In my experience, they don't like me, but it might just be like confirmation bias from that.
He wanted to protect you from gambling.
Yeah, maybe.
That's it. You know?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I did get one of the little
by loose cards.
ghost things. I can't remember what they were called.
But you're a bit of a weeb, so do you know Evangelion? Of course.
No.
And in Evangelion, the anime.
I am not a weeb at all. I just played Yu-Gi-Oh.
Okay, but in Evangelion, they always drink this beer, so it's very famous, weeb beer.
Okay.
So,
Tolki, I'm impressed with how many you've put away so far, to be honest. I've just been catching my eye every so often and just like, we need to go for drinks improper at some stage.
It's a Japanese training,
Yeah.
It's like the hard mode of training.
I think the Irish could probably contest that title as well. I'd love to see. I'm willing to adjudicate that showdown. If you guys need a judge or a referee,
I'll join in. I'll throw in the Russian card.
Let's go. I'm ready.
I've been training in Russian holidays.
Yeah.
Russian holidays.
Now we just created a bad joke. An Irish, a British, a French, and a Russian walk into a bar.
But this one was only 120 milliliters, so it doesn't really count, does it?
It's like those airplane beers where you ask for a beer and they give you one that's like literally basically a shot, and it's just a disaster. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about League of Legends, shall we? Since that's sort of the thing we have most in common, that and apparently beer. So preseason has happened, gentlemen. I don't know if you've noticed. I'd imagine that you have, since you are coaches within League of Legends. Do you want to give us a bit of a flavor of some of the craziest stuff you've seen in preseason so far? Because obviously, I'm not expecting you to tell me your top 5 OPs, because you probably want to save that for LEC. But I know that everyone I've spoken to about preseason has a different idea of what's broken and what's ridiculous and what item is just completely bonkers and what item is just completely useless. And I feel like I'm curious if you guys have the same take, or if you're kind of on different pages on what's broken right now, what's not broken right now, what needs buffs, what needs nerfs, etc., etc.
Show us yours, and we will show you ours.
Okay, sure. So my top 3 bans right now are Kayle, Kayn, and Samira. Those 3 are 1v9 busted, like win any game just by locking it in kind of thing in my eyes. What are your guys' top 3 bans?
I'll put Kayn up there, yeah. But it's are you asking in the sphere of solo queue or in the sphere of what would be competitively viable? Like if we're predicting Kespa, what are they going to play in Kespa? I don't think we're going to see super much Kane. I think there is room to punish Kane, but Kane is definitely up there in the sphere of maybe broken. Same thing with Samira, right? I think there is a quality about Samira that she is very, very snowball prone. Like you can put her in the same sphere as maybe a Katarina, but that snowball might not occur in an environment where she's maybe leaning against a misfortune and struggles against something that is super, super difficult. So is it a solo queue question or is it a competitive question?
I mean, I'm personally more interested in competitive, but
Yeah.
Okay.
If we are getting onto a topic where it's like you don't really want to say too much, like that's totally fine. We could talk about solo queue, but I obviously am most interested in what's going to be good competitively when we're looking to Casper, Demacia, and all that good stuff. Because there's going to be a couple of patches, I'd imagine, before actual LEC starts.
Well, I guess on our end, we're not making conclusions now. I think everything is very preliminary and a lot of things will change. Like, for example, now maybe Imperial Mandate, Sunfire Cape, or Sunfire Aegis specifically, because of the ability-based mythic passive. Maybe these items are overtuned, and I think right now items dictate which champions are being played more so than champions being OP. And AP items were really strong for a short amount of time, and then they got gutted. So I think the high win rate champions are also in line. I believe Casper Cup is I don't know if they might be playing already Demacia Cup.
The Demacia Cup starts on like the 19th or something like that.
The 19th. So everyone's playing on 10.25, right?
I couldn't tell you.
I'd imagine.
We've not got much info about Demacia yet, so
Okay. Because that's like from at least our position, it's like these teams are going to do a lot of legwork, a lot of legwork on that patch, and then another patch is going to come. So there is a lot of information that is going to be readily available. And even though let's say we are tournament ready and we figure everything out now, what good does it do us if we don't actually compete on the patch? I mean, we might compete on like 10.27 or maybe even 28 if it extends so far. I'm not completely certain.
Just for context as well, someone's asking in chat. Casper Cup is a Korean tournament, and Demacia Cup is a Chinese tournament. These are both tournaments with some pro teams, some like semi-pro. Well, I guess they're all pro teams, but like some LCK teams, some academy teams, essentially, all competing together. Same for Demacia with China. It's only LCK teams.
I think it's only LCK because now it's franchised. So there's no more like CK teams. It's just 10
all 10 LCK teams this year. It's going to change over.
Damn, that's actually
it's two groups of 5.
That's
single
really
round robin, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so
to bounce on what Yamato said, by the way, I mean I agree 100% with him. For me, it's more like what's broken right now doesn't really matter to us as a team because there will be 2 to 3 patches before pro play, and like Riot is experimenting right now. They're very clearly pushing the limits. Of what can work, and they're very clearly broken champions and items. But who cares? Like it's preseason MMR. It's not gonna be even people who grind rank. It's not gonna be a rank at the end of the year. Like those patches right now are made to be experimental, and they're not made to be heavily analyzed because, of course, they're broken as hell. That's what they're designed for. So I'm waiting for a little bit of stability before really pouring hours into understanding where we stand.
Yes.
Okay, so. With that said, let's talk about some solo queue power picks then a little bit. Oh, sorry, Dagda, go on.
I want to just real quick, because obviously there's a lot of different power spikes on different lanes and champions and all that kind of stuff at the moment. And you guys are coming into a fresh team and you're trying to figure out like, hey, what's the identity and the style that we want to play? Like, how do you try and figure out that at the moment when there is just so much fluctuation in like what's strong, what people should be playing? Like maybe you've got someone who's playing a bunch of tanks in the top lane, but really their strength lies in a carry role. Like, how do you try and identify that and try and work with that within the new team?
I think first and foremost, I think we just need some data. I think the dynamic, even though now, of course, we've maintained the core in Selfmade, Hillisang, and Whippo, with the addition of 2 new players and also, of course, 2 new coaches, the dynamic will change, and in every dynamic, people find themselves sometimes in different roles, and we just have to see how everything pans out as we get into it. We are currently actively discussing what everyone's playing in the game. I'm monitoring solo queue accounts and making sure that everyone's in tip-top shape, mechanically coming into the season. But all in all, this is something that I think if you are diligent about it, it's a problem that will solve itself with time. It's hard to say from the get-go, especially because we don't know how the patch is going to look like. It's like the moment me and Gary are going to have the patch notes for the patch that we're going to play on, then we're going to rip up the whole carpet. We're going to see everything that is underneath all of these words and silly phrases that they had before the change. I hate those, honestly, but that's just personal beef, so I shouldn't even bring it up. Yeah.
Fair enough.
And even then, like champion strength in League of Legends, even though it matters, it's still not that big of a discrepancy. What matters is having sound compositions, knowing how you want your team to play, much more than specific champions in the end. Like, even the most broken champions in League of Legends history had only a 60% win rate, and then you have to put them in the right composition, give them the right tools to succeed, put them against the right champions. So, like, we have time to figure it out.
Mhm.
It's not going to be, a short something. It's not about coming into week one with, the perfect picks and bans for this new preseason. What we want really is to be, at the end of the year, the team with the best drafts, make sure we understand the game the best. It's going to take time. It's going to be about making sure our players and our team can play the compositions we intend to draft. And it's not something that's going to happen, in the first 2 weeks. It's a long work to get, where your team can be.
It's also just to add, we are preparing for when the preparation starts.
Preparing to prepare.
We're preparing to prepare. That's what it is, pretty much.
Okay, so I actually kind of want to dig into that a little bit more in kind of you guys and how you're approaching hitting the LEC running with Fnatic, because you're kind of talking about, to word it how you worded it there, Yamato, you're preparing to prepare, right? What does that look like, especially with an organization with like Fnatic that is so well known, such a high amount of expectation and pressure on you guys to perform? Obviously, Reckless leaving the team, and Upset coming in, who in of itself is a big name and a huge prospect, right? I think it's certainly like Reddit is seriously underplaying the power level you guys have on this team. What's it been like, kind of hitting the ground running here and trying to pick up? Like, what have you guys been doing so far to set yourselves up for once you know what patch you're on, once you know what the power picks are, how to properly apply that, and how to be a team already by the time that comes around?
I think on my end, it's just about, I usually take time in the so-called off season to really reflect on everything that I've been through, and to really know what works and what doesn't work, and to really spend as much time as possible to get to know the players, to be as prepared as possible for the dynamic that will occur. I think in terms of the pressure that comes with Fnatic, on my end, the biggest pressure has always come from knowing that I am responsible for actual people. I think as a head coach, I see myself responsible for everyone that is a part of the project. And there is no greater pressure than that, because you have an opportunity to affect people's lives in ways that can be hurting or memorable, and shape them in a good way. And regardless of how many fans, millions or whatever, there's nothing that is going to, be stronger than that pressure alone. And of course, it matters. The Fnatic brand, it comes with, a privilege and also, a challenge. But I know that everything has kind of aligned for this moment. Like, I've been competing against Fnatic since my genesis in League. I was competing against the Xpeke and the Shushays, and I was always, whenever I was facing Fnatic, it was always a very grand event. And to now be a part of this, every game is going to be a grand event. And that in itself, it's like fuel for the soul. It's really fuel for the soul, because I'm kind of motivating myself here as I'm talking, and I'm getting very excited what's to come.
The tiger starts playing in the background.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like this has been almost a long time coming for you. Like, was Fnatic an aspiration of yours career-wise? Or is it just kind of like this has happened and you've kind of realized how big of a deal this is?
I guess, like in terms of how I make choices, I had the privilege of taking Spring Split off because like Vitality decided to part ways with me very late into November, and that was well within their rights. I'm not trying to pile on to them, but it was very late into November, so all teams were pretty much set in stone. And then all the offers that I received were kind of like, these players, I don't really see myself, being passionate in this project. So I kind of just took a step back. And what I always look for in the teams that I sign for, or now I've signed for Fnatic, is just the challenge and the opportunity to grow and to become a better version of myself. I think for me, the vision of living and being alive is self-improvement and getting better and trying to perfect everything that you're doing, even though perfection can't be reached. The pursuit to me is life. And if I'm in a situation where I can't apply myself in such a way, I don't want to be a part of it. And Fnatic naturally is an environment and this opportunity where I can have these things specifically. So it was a natural progression.
Nice. That sounds like it fits you
That's
down
a
to a
very
T. Sorry, go on, Tolki.
That's a very Nietzschean way of life. It's about becoming the Übermensch, always becoming better and reaching the pinnacle of humanity. So sounds like a good goal. Always improving day by day, step by step.
Kaizen, isn't it? Is that what it's called? Kaizen?
Yeah. It's Kaizen. It's a word for improvement. It was on the walls of my team in Japan, like the kanji for Kaizen. We did write it on the wall. So yeah, it's a mindset I can really get on board with.
Is it? Would you say this is? Would you say this is a similar thing for you, Tolki, where this was kind of like a long time coming, or because obviously you've been on T1 as well. T1 is certainly no slouch of a team. Like, where do you sit on this?
Like, I went from Splice, a team for which nobody cared about, even though we're actually good, to T1, which was the opposite. Like, everybody cared about the team, whatever happened. Like, everybody was crazy about it. And for me, it didn't really change anything. It's really about what I can do, how I can help the players, how I can get better, work on what I'm developing, how I'm trying to understand the game. I don't really care, like in terms of the pressure, it's not something that really affects me. Mm-hmm. The only thing I want is my team to perform. Like, I love esports. I love working for teams because I love competing. I love trying to be the best version of myself. And always pushing forward, always trying to go for that next step.
And what's it like for you now? Because you're going to be moving, obviously, from France to Japan and now back to Germany. Like, it's a lot of moving about for you. Are you excited about the move back to Germany? Are you kind of sad to be leaving Japan? Because obviously you've got a big love for it. So where do you sit in the whole thing?
For me, that's the biggest pressure, actually. Like, the biggest part about my move to Fnatic is leaving Japan. Because if I could, I would stay in Japan, but I realize for my future, it's not the best. I want to be working in esports. I want to be, in interesting teams and working on good projects. And I know I have to leave Japan at the moment for that. So that's the hardest part about it. But yeah, it's I've been getting used to it. I'm moving around. My wife usually has business trips in London very often. I'm traveling around as well in Singapore. It's something you get used to. I'm a traveler now.
I feel like that plight of Japan versus esports is a common plight within this world that we live in. Like, with how popular anime is, I've spoken to so many people that are like, I really want to move to Japan, but I also want a career in esports. And for some reason, despite how popular gaming is in Japan, Japanese esports just doesn't seem to be like booming, you know? Like
Yes.
Get your
LGL.
shit together, Nintendo. Get your
Yeah,
shit
yeah, I
together.
mean,
Nintendo has a lot to do with that. But like there is a history of competitive gaming in Japan actually in arcades. Like actual esports started in arcades in the 90s with fighting games, and that's where I come from. The Daigo Umehara, beating people up when they were 12, and now he's 40 years old, still playing fighting games. It's still his life. He's literally one of the first pro gamers in the world. The issue with Japan is that there was never really a big professionalization, and it never really reached the mainstream outside of Umehara and Tokido. It never really got that inertia to really, get to the next level and really become something that people can aspire to.
Such.
Yeah.
very Surge. Big Surge.
Baby hands.
All of the other Twitch emotes as well. I can't think of them all right now. Interesting. Yeah, I've always been kind of. I had a friend that I worked with when I was living in America, and he was like a huge fan of Japan, and he really wanted to go and live in Japan and work in Japan, but he was an esports producer by trade, and he could have gone into like reality TV or whatever in Japan, like that's an option, but esports, especially on television and things in Japan, was just not on the table at all for him. I remember over beers him lamenting about this many times to me, so I know that this is an unfortunate situation within the Japanese scene at least, but I mean that's from an outsider looking at Japan. Whether or not that's true actually in the scene is a different conversation.
Actually, a producer from a gaming, came to Japan to live for 2 years, and he directed advertising for Renault Nissan.
Oh.
Like he came from gaming, but he had to do something else in Japan, and now he's back in esports in France. And yeah, it's hard in Japan, as a foreigner, to find something that's professionally fulfilling while being something you can find in Japan. Like I could find a job, but I'm not sure I can find a job that I would really enjoy doing, even in esports. So it's a sacrifice that sometimes you have to make. I've been saying goodbye to all the restaurants in the neighborhood. Like it's very local in Japan. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I miss the most. I've been taking pictures with the guys at the restaurants. They've been telling me goodbyes and all that, and it's very emotional. But I'll get through it. I'll learn to love Germany.
I don't think you're gonna find the same local spirit in Berlin as you might find in Tokyo. I feel like Berlin's a little more industrial is the word that I'm gonna use. A bit smelly in my experience. All right, well let's return to our conversation of power picks on the current patch, right? Because you guys have said you're not that worried about what's really good right now in competitive because you don't have to compete right now. And there's going to be a couple of patches. So if you guys have been playing solo queue, because I know I've been mashing solo queue, what has been the most obnoxious stuff that you've either dealt with or you've been abusing or you just ban every game? Like what's the crazy stuff right now for you? Dagda, this goes out to you as well.
God. Samira for me is the one. Just because I play support and I'm just like, every time my AD carry is going to walk into them, there's going to be Leona on the other team. They get CC'd, knocked up, and they're dead. I'm just like, I'm not going to deal with that. So just take Samira out and I'll be fine. That's it.
I think if a team doesn't have Imperial Mandate and the enemy team has Imperial Mandate, you are just at a disadvantage because this item is just really busted. I think there is room. I don't understand why. Maybe I shouldn't reveal this, but I don't understand. Maybe people have tried it, but I would experiment with double support bot because I think some of the mythic items, especially after Moonstone buff, maybe is super strong. After they change the support item, it stacks incredibly fast. You can finish like an extra 1,000 gold already at 12-minute mark if you are good at the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Seraphine Sona bot lanes just to abuse and
Double
be nasty,
Sona.
and then the champions that synergize with these shields and these heals so well are the tanks, and then you have a full combination, and then you have Your AD carry in
Oh.
the jungle. You play the Graves, you play the Kindred, you play the Kane, and then you just tank it up and you roast everybody with your Sunfire cape, and that's
It's
how
okay.
you win.
We have Nuggery in the Shine LPL. We won't be doing tanks. It's okay.
Have you seen their Ornn gameplay? Oh, both of them.
Have
Very
the
good.
shy
Yeah,
builds
sure.
Doran's blade and then
Yeah.
dies. It's great. Oh god. I have to say Yumi is one that I've seen with Imperial Mandate that seems to be getting pretty strong again. Because she can build Imperial Mandate and it's basically the same as when she was building Ludens before. And her Q still does like a quarter or a third of a squishy's HP just on one hit. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Yumi recently, but she is starting to build in popularity across the games I've played. And I don't know, with how incredibly strong healing is right now, she feels kind of busted to me. I don't know. That's
Also with the tanks.
yeah.
That's the thing. Yumi with tanks. You have a Skarner and a Yumi. Skarner just kills everything. Skarner, Nunu jungle, disgusting champions. And then they have high base health, Yumi missing health, healing. It's I can understand that. I can see that.
Yeah. I guess
I think Nunu's been playing mode for 2 years, and now finally people are seeing the light. Our Lord and Savior, Nunu and Willem. But yeah, tanks are strong. They've always been.
Yeah.
It's a secret.
Mm-hmm.
I saw one guy who was playing his ear and he built Imperial Mandate into Rylays and he was terrible right up until he finished the Rylays and then he was just 1v9ing. It was ridiculous. Because the soldiers proc the Rylays, which then gets the Imperial Mandate. So you're just constantly procking it on every single auto. It was disgusting.
God, that sounds obnoxious.
It's like most mid laners, you can buy that and you won't go wrong.
Yeah.
It's very OP. Imperial Mandate. I need more Reddit threads about this. The AD carries are always very vocal. AD carries are the whiniest bunch of players.
Yeah, aren't they, Munch?
Yeah.
They really are, Munch, aren't they?
I can relate to that. I know this because I've started playing top lane because this role is completely fucking useless right now. You just play lethality Jhin and pretend you're a mid laner, basically. That's what the role has come down to.
Yeah.
Honestly, Vayne is also incredibly strong. Vayne will obviously become incredibly high priority if tanks do continue to be OP. I want to ask you guys a question that's very close to my heart. Does Kog Maw have a place in this meta? If we go into the universe where it's all tanks and it's all support bots, can we have Kog Maw Lulu hyper carry comps? Because I love myself a bit of Kog Maw. Is it possible? Because iBoy played it one time this year. He ran it down, and nobody played it since, and it broke my heart.
To give a bit of context there, Munch had been hyping on Kog Maw the entire summer split. I was like, this is the play. We're going to see it. It's going to be great. And then iBoy comes in and runs it down the entire game. He's like, no, that wasn't the game. That wasn't the game. It's a different one. It's a different one.
It'll happen again, guys. I promise. It didn't happen again.
I remember this game.
Well,
Kog Maw,
yeah, no, go on, sorry.
forgive me. It's hard on Discord.
Yeah.
Kog Maw just I think the problem with Kog Maw is that he's a victim of needing items that when they are good on Kog, they are too broken on the champs. So for example, Blade was very strong and Ginzu was a decent item. And then they got nerfed because Vayne is like abusing it. Right? And other champions are abusing it. And then it has to get nerfed. And then in hand, Kog Maw gets nerfed and Kog Maw is just sitting there. Like, what did I do to deserve this nerf? And it's the same now. Like if you played AP Kog, maybe it was I didn't. This is completely like AP Kog, Archangel Staff is a piece of shit of an item. It got buffed now, so I don't know how the numbers have changed. Well, not now, like in the most recent patch.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like something that hurts him. And I think it's always he's just a victim of his surroundings. It's just the nerfs are landing left and right, and then if you look at the AD carries that are being played right now, Kog Maw laning against like Misfortune, Jhin, Samira. That's tough. That's very tough.
I feel like he's a victim of mobility creep as well.
Yeah.
Like his E, if you're an AD carry, his E is fucking garbage. His passive is entirely. You have to utilize his passive. Like half of his kit is completely outdated at this point. I feel like he's one of the champions in the game that I think is most in need of a rework at this stage to really actually be the late game hyper carry kind of siege artillery ADC that it says on the tin. Like, it says that you can do all of these things on the tin. You're advertised this like late game super long range artillery AD carry that's gonna melt tanks and annihilate carries and like nobody can get blah blah, and then you play it in game and you just fucking die 1,000 times because everyone can have 14 dashes and everyone does half of your health per auto, and like, who cares if you do percentage damage if you're already fucking dead, you know?
Told you guys, AD carry players, they are the whiniest.
Hey, I'm just saying how it is.
Sorry, guys, sorry.
I think range itself and damage is not enough to make a late game carry. And even if they rework Kog Maw, I don't think they're going to give him a dash. That would be, out of place. And as long as you don't have a way to reposition, you're not in a hyper carry because you're a mid game carry. If your strengths come from damage, it comes from dealing damage with fewer items than other champions, which means you're going to be best in the middle of the game. Like, to be good late game, you only need range and mobility. That's why Ezreal is so good late. You don't care how much damage he deals. You can never catch him. He's always going to dish out damage. And Kog Maw, his whole concept is kind of doomed from the start. Like, he's a low mobility, high damage champion. It doesn't really work without a lot of support and really a coherent kit like Jhin.
Well,
No.
I could dig further into this, but I feel like I am one of the few people on the planet that's interested in Kog Maw.
I think they need to just have him be able to slide across his E. If you can just like use that as a slide, it'd be perfect, Yeah.
It's actually just Fairy Liquid. It's not slime anymore.
Yeah.
It just like scoots along.
Wait, Gary, are you standing up?
Yes, I prefer standing up, for a long call.
I'm very jealous of you. I wish I had one of those desks. Because you
I mean,
get the
feel
It
full
took me
free to
like
stand
10
up.
minutes to set up.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a
It
great
It might be an
midriff.
awkward angle.
All right, so let's bring the conversation back to the LEC because I feel like that's what a lot of people will be tuning in to listen to. So, coming into this year, tell me a little bit about Fnatic and what people should set their expectations to, because as we mentioned earlier on in the show, the expectations will be relatively high. Like, when you look at a lot of these players in terms of I guess expected power level in the public eye, like, you've got some serious heavy hitters on the team. What should the community expectation be for this squad, like, coming into the year?
How do you feel, Gary? You want to go or should I go?
I can go on that. I don't really care what the community expectation can be, but we're coming to win, and not just LEC. Like, we're coming for the titles, all of them, and I think we built a roster that can challenge for all the titles, and that's all that matters to me. I mean, I cannot say we're gonna go back-to-back LEC World Champions, but that's the plan. Like, when you come into a season, if that's not your goal, like, what is? So I think we have a roster that's able to do this. We have players that have individual strength and that mesh together well enough to really challenge for the top. And that's all we're gonna gun for. Like, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. We're doing Bevvies with the boys, so I'm just gonna say flat out, like, if you are not trying to win everything, you can just, go eat shit. I think there's no other way. There's no other way to approach it. Because at the end of the day, if you are in the mentality that you win it all, how you're going to work day to day is going to change. Results are only a byproduct of what we're going to do day to day. So it's like, when we're saying we want to win it all, we're going to work as if we want to win it all. We're going to strive to win it all. The byproduct is the byproduct. Things can happen. I've been in seasons where I've had players that have fucking heart problems in the middle of the season. I couldn't fucking predict that. Things happen. But in the end, we focus on the process, and the process is going to be built in a way with the aspiration to win fucking everything. I think anyone that acts in any different capacity is like, yeah, we're looking to go playoffs in spring and then build and then maybe go to Worlds. Like, I don't think this really works. I don't think it really flies. Like, I think, sure, you can look at the year as a 1-year process, and I'm not against this, but I think you should always aspire to be the best possible. If you are limiting yourself and setting the bar too low, you're not going to work in a way that is going to put you and elevate you to those levels. And now with these players, with this group of players and with Fnatic, like this is, everyone aligns on this 100%.
And what is the Yamato Toki process? Like, you guys have just come into this new team. Like, what are the things that you do to get that groundwork in place straight off the bat?
Go, Gary.
So for me, it's a lot of organization, structure, efficiency. I feel like in a lot of esports teams, player wastes a lot of time. Players, twiddle the thumbs around, not really doing anything productive, or scrims take too long, feedback takes too long. They play solo queue, a lot of queue time, and maybe not all games are productive. Like, I want to cut back on that. Like, my goal coming in is really for players to train efficiently, to gain time, and then have more time to take care of themselves, not burn out, and be at the top at the end of the year. Like, for me, it's really a question of structuring training, being more efficient for everything we can do in terms of communication, in terms of feedback, in terms of training itself, and having this help the players move forward. That's what I want to put in place at Fnatic, really.
Yes, and on my end, to bounce over this point, for me, it's always been finding the efficiency in people, and I think building the right culture in place, making sure that everyone's aligned on the same ideas, and attacking any personal problems that might occur, which honestly I say might, but they're going to occur. Like always, when you're hanging out with people, you reach a point in time where you spend enough time with a person, you're like, holy shit, this fucking annoys me. Fucking does this all the time. You need to be very, very aggressive in how you deal with these things, and you need to make sure that you build bridges between people. The difference between, like, for example, now both me and Tolki, we came from Korea. You have 5 players with similar backgrounds, not exactly the same backgrounds, but you have players that they understand the culture. They're all aligned on the same culture, so that can follow into the team environment, and a lot of things can already be said and done. While in Europe, I mentioned in Vitality, we had one from every corner of Europe. Here as well, we have players coming from different backgrounds, different cultures. So you need to make sure that you are always building bridges. And I think the foundation for any team should be that you need to trust that the other person that you are facing or having an argument with is acting in what they believe is in the best intention of the team. And that is going to manifest itself very differently from person to person. But it's just important to have that as a backbone, because you need to have that in place in order to build bridges between people. That annoyance might turn into something that you understand and then help to improve. And then all of a sudden, every problem of the team is no longer an individual problem, it's a team problem. And that is what we're going to work very, very hard to put in place from the get-go, because in anyone's experience, when you ignore issues, whether it's in your relationship with your significant other or with anyone really, like if you ignore issues, that carpet that you sweep everything under is going to be very uncomfortable to walk on. And if you are in an environment where you're trying to achieve the most possible, any of those issues need to be ironed out. And we're going to be very, very ready for when it happens. And already from now, from speaking to all the players, we're all aligning about what we want to achieve and what we want to be. So I think this is just the most important thing for a team. So Gary is all about efficiency. Me too, all about efficiency, because I think esports is still at its infancy. There's a lot of things that can be min-maxed, and the system of just scrimming and reviewing and then the day is over, I think there's a lot of things that can be trimmed off and things that can be done much, much better. So me and Gary, we've had maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 calls in total, and every time we talk more than 1 hour, 2 hours, it just feels like we are aligning on everything. So I'm super, super excited.
And
Nice.
how do you try and build that trust between the players? Because obviously, as you said, you're coming in from different cultures, and you're going to have some people who are just like, whatever the background is, they're just like, hey, look, you're fucking shit. Get your shit together. We're going to do this. Whereas you're going to have other people that are much more reserved. Like, how do you try and balance all these differences and opinions? Like, how do you build the trust so someone can be comfortable and go, hey, look, Yamato, hey, Tolki, this isn't working for me. I've got an issue here. Can we try and come together and sort this out? Like, how do you get that system in place?
Well, as I mentioned, the key thing is building bridges. The reason I use the analogy of building bridges is because I don't know if structurally or like from an engineering side of it works that way, but I see as bridges you can build them from both ways. Sometimes some problems will be solved 90% from one person and 10% from the other. Sometimes 50-50, sometimes the other way around. It's just about having a problem-solving mindset and putting that in place from the get-go. Our dynamic is going to be very unique. It's going to be very different from my team. So even though I've had experience with working with said players, I'm well aware of the fact that each individual that we have on this team is unique, and their needs and their perception is going to be very different from any players I've worked with in the past. So it's all about just making sure there's a space to talk, always to talk openly, making sure that the backbone of what we are going to build a team on is something that everyone agrees on. It's not it's not a dictatorship. It's not my rules or my philosophy. It's a philosophy that we all align on. There are some certain key aspects that I insist on, but in the end, having a foundation where everyone agrees, these are our rules that we're going to abide by for the entirety of the time we're going to work together. And that is going to be our foundation. And everything that comes along the way, we're going to be aggressive about it and making sure that every perspective is listened to. We can begin to build on top of that. How that tower is going to look like is going to be very different from team to team, because as I mentioned, every person is very unique in their own way, and our dynamic is going to be unique in its own way too. So it's all about just being ready for when those things come.
Interesting.
The only way to get people to do what you want is to get them to want to do it. Like, you have to get the players on board and make sure, they are the ones who want to make it happen. And you cannot force things on them. The only way that they're going to do something is by making them see that that's what they need to do to achieve their own goals. So it's just a matter of communication. I think everybody in pro play wants to win. Everybody is there for the title, and you just have to help them, help them solve issues the right way, and the way that the team can win more. Like, nobody wants to lose in esports.
You'd hope not, anyway. You'd
I've seen
certainly
some
hope
shit.
not.
You haven't played Munch before, have you?
MF isn't just a champion. That's all I'm going to say. So I want to ask you guys. So you're talking a lot about like how you interact with these players once you have a relationship, and how you figure each other out and all of this. What is the do you guys have a process for day 1, day 2, day 3? How do you actually get on the same page with these players and figure this stuff out? So
what's your favorite icebreaker?
No. But on a very real note as well, are you guys playing Among Us? What is the way of getting past just the I don't know who these people are kind of
from a colleague to a
situation
friend
you often
kind of.
get? Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, we'll see more once we're all in person in Berlin. It's going to be in a month still, because there will be some quarantine happening. But I don't think it will be much of an issue. We both talk to all players many times. And I feel like, players see our point of view. Yamato and I are not the kind of people to come in and be like, we do things my way. I'm the boss. We go here. That doesn't work. That's not how you make a team succeed. You have to involve the players. You have to listen to them. You have to do, one-on-one meetings with them, involve them in the decision-making process. So, they actually have a say, because it matters. They are the ones who will be following what kind of training regimen you put out. So it's a lot of convincing. It's a lot of, debating, but we're not doing anything special. We're just going to be there in person. We're going to be ourselves, and have no doubts, we're going to mesh well together. We don't need to play Among Us to get to know each other.
Fair enough. Yeah, we were just talking
I don't know
about
what the question was, but I agree. We don't need to play Among Us. Fuck that game. I don't like this game. I really try to like this game, but it's not for me. There's no goal. There's no winning. There's no stats. Like if there's a win ratio.
Yeah.
So it needs a
There's
ranked
a lot
mode
of
before
fighting
you're
games.
interested. Ranked Among Us, that's where Yamato's at.
I felt really bad. The first time I ever met Ender was playing Among Us. And I literally said like 2 words to him, like, "Hey, hello, how's it going? Good to meet you." And then I set him up for a kill, got him kicked out like straight away. It was just like, all right, cool. Well, I'm peacing out. See you later.
I'm pretty sure Yamato was actually in that lobby.
Oh, you might have actually been, yeah.
Might have been, yeah.
Because we were pairing up, and then I think he killed me. You cold-blooded bastard.
This was the Red Bull event we did.
Well, this
That was a
was
mess, man.
long after that. Among Us didn't exist at that point.
That Red Bull event was a mess for me, man. I don't know how it was for you.
Oh, really? How so?
Bro, I had to host. I don't know why they put me up for hosting. That was already like a big
I was
red alert.
surprised when I saw you on the
I
announcement.
was
You did fine, though.
hosting,
You
and
did
then I was
great.
hosting for 7 games. Minecraft, some new shit game they wanted to advertise, fucking FIFA, and I was making rude EA jokes. I'm happy that the viewership wasn't too high because I was like, I remember the opening segment for FIFA. I was like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, can you guys tell me how did EA figure out a way to scam people again? Tell me about FIFA 2020 or whatever the fuck the year was.
They are fun events, though. They are fun events. I will say I was surprised to see that you were hosting on the talent list, but hey, you know.
I love the way there's the difference between like the person who's actually doing like Yamato's been put out of his comfort zone here. He's like, this is fucking stupid. Whereas everyone else at home is like, it's great to see him diversifying. He's trying new things. It's going really well. It's just like, no, this is shit. I hated this.
It was fun to do something different, but it was just weird because I remember like the rehearsal day. Like Jizuki was sending me pictures of him being out on the lake on a boat, you know, he's eating some crumpets and fucking orange juice and some shit.
Dude, as a host, rehearsal day is the worst because the problem, right? Everyone has to do rehearsal day, right? Rehearsal day is a necessary evil. Like, and I'm one of the people in esports that most loves rehearsal day in terms of like the finished product. It's really, really important to be able to fucking nail that shit. But if you are hosting specifically, you are there from the very start of the rehearsal to the very fucking end of the rehearsal because you are there from the very start of the show to the end of the show. The casters will come in and rehearse for like an hour maybe. Like the analysts will have to do 1 or 2 of the segments. The players come in for like 30 seconds to do a walk on stage if they even do that. Like half of the tech crew is only working half the day, but as the host, you are there the entire
11
fucking
hours
time.
standing.
And you
11
do
hours.
everything over and over again. But the worst part about it is that people don't realize is with rehearsal days, so much of it is down to tech. So as the host, you have to be there. You can't just fuck off. You have to just sit at the desk and fucking twiddle your thumbs while they figure out whatever the fuck is going on backstage. You're not allowed to leave. All you can do is just fucking scroll on Twitter. So on days when you see someone that like Dash or someone like that, when you see them tweet like 20 times in an hour, they're on a rehearsal day. That's what's happening right there. They just have absolutely nothing else to do.
Worst part. Let me tell you, worst part. I didn't get paid for this event because Vitality was sponsored by Red Bull, so they just shipped me off.
Oh no!
But it was all right.
That's
in the end,
rough.
it was all right. What's his name? Vincent Constantin, the guy who was like good-looking blonde guy with the glasses who took care of us.
That's a lot of people.
I've left the glasses over there.
Yeah, Connie though. Yeah.
he was
There's
cool.
a lot of people in Switzerland though. But yeah, no, he's a really nice guy.
Are there a lot of people in Switzerland? I'm not even sure.
I said that's a lot of people in Switzerland. I mean, like in percentages, there are not that many people in Switzerland. They have a whole like culture war thing going on where it's like different counties all.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not even going to try and explain it because I feel like I'll just completely annihilate it. Let's talk LEC. Let's talk the teams. Obviously, I think it's fair to say that G2 is your biggest competition. I don't think I'm saying anything particularly controversial there. So outside of G2, because I feel like that conversation is kind of, hey, yeah, they're probably going to be pretty good. And that's kind of all you can say right now. Who are the big teams that you're looking towards right now? Like when we look at teams like Mad Lions with their roster changes, even teams like Schalke. Who are the teams that you guys are looking towards as potential contenders for kind of top 4, top 5?
I feel like Rogue probably is the team that can transfer the form of last year the best, because I think the signings are also interesting. I think I'm trying to remember which team is it SK that have Tinks and all of the rookies? Because that's interesting too, right? You never know how that's going to pan out. Or even with Mad Lions, like they are losing Peter Dunn, and they're bringing in some new pieces, and you never know how the dynamic might shift within a team. Because like even for Rogue, Vander is going to Misfits. I believe that's official, right? I believe he's going to. I don't know if it's not like whoops if it isn't. Like it's pretty late. It's pretty late, guys. You better have it official already, man. Like, get your shit together if it's not out.
I think Misfits haven't announced anyone technically yet.
Okay.
But
So
Rogue, I think have. So Rogue is Odoamne inspired. Larson has Sam and Trimby. So
it's a meme. Like, what's the word? Well, I'm trying to find. Not arguably, but the other word. What's the word I'm looking for, guys?
I'm not sure.
English speakers. Go on.
Give me the
Right
context.
there.
Give me the sentence
Yeah.
that you would put it in. And
I'm
I
not
can help you
native.
out here.
It's allegedly. Thank you, Rochko.
Oh, allegedly.
Allegedly. Everything. Samp allegedly on it. But what my point was, that they are losing Vander, and then Trimby is coming in, and then like Vander, players do a lot in teams that we can't see from outside in terms of communication, in terms of kind of hiding the flaws of their teammates. The same thing with Perks with G2. We don't really know what kind of an impact it has on a team to pull out a player, because some players make other players better without them realizing them in the moment. And sometimes you can take that for granted. And all of this is speculation. But at the end of the day, if I look at rosters, probably like Rogue, Mad Lions, I don't know what's happening with Shadow. No idea. Allegedly, China, I guess. Like at the end of the day, like I don't think these teams, they can have like a starburst and so forth. But I think it will be very similar to like the previous years. It's like we have such a high ceiling already in our players that is certain, in comparison to some of the other teams where the ceiling is uncertain. So I think there's a chance for some newcomers to of course take a higher stance. But I think it just comes down to at the end of the day, what are they doing in practice, and that's something that I can't speculate on. I would put Rogue probably third, I guess, in terms of who's the most exciting to watch.
Behind you and GCU.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
It's really hard to see how players will match together, beforehand. It's really hard to predict what's going to happen before the season even starts. After spring, you have a better idea of how teams want to play and what they want to achieve. But at the moment, we're very much in the dark. I feel like we did build a great roster, and for me, that's all that matters. If your team is performing at the best level that it can, it should be able to win LEC. And I think other teams, build that way as well. But I think we made the right choices, and like some of the other teams look good, but I'm confident we'll be able to get up there and challenge for the title again.
Yeah,
But
I think that's
Rogue would be my first pick after us.
I think that's the most challenging part, is that like how do you try and slot in your criteria, right? I mean, is it like star power that you're looking for? Is it just that, as you said, like some players make other players better? It becomes really difficult to try and figure out like what actually makes a dream team work, because I mean, as we saw with Mad Lions, they were kind of a bunch of rookies that came in and they looked really, really good together. So I think it makes it really difficult, unless you know that these guys have played together, to actually have a criteria that you can have an idea, but you don't really know until you get them onto the Rift together.
Just a smaller part on Mad Lions, Splice the year before, the very similar coaching staff had better results and nobody cared. Like it's a lot of communication. Like it's a lot of what the teams show. Like Mad Lions did very good, and I think they're going to be a top 4 team next season. but it's mostly on the back of Mac, who's like a great coach and who's great at making players the best they can be, I think. Like, he's going to manage whatever roster changes there are.
It's interesting to me that each of you, when talking about Mad Lions, has nominated a different coach. So, Tolki, you said Mac, whereas Yamato, you said Peter
I
Dunn
think
is leaving.
he speaks on a better authority because he's been in Splice during that time. I think on my end, it's just information from interacting. Like I've been on one PGL with Mac, and he was very nice. Like he won as many points as he could have won in that little interaction that we had. So it's not on him, but it's just hard to know, right? It's very difficult to know.
I love how you're judging people on
shadows
brownie
until
points
last year.
exclusively.
Yeah.
What did you say? Sorry, Tolki.
He was very much in the shadows before last year, so it makes sense. He was not front and center, or people didn't really even know what he was doing. But I think he's a great coach, and he was, the common link, the common denominator between all the Mad Lion and Splice rosters, and he's been a very good coach, to push the players forward. But Peter Dunn, at the same time, he was a great scout. Like, I don't say that about a lot of people, but I think he was one of the best scouts in the world. It's very hard to find new talent as well as Peter Dunn did, and that's a very specific skill he has. And that's something that they're going to miss at Mad Lions. They're not making much changes, but in the future, like, Peter watches so much League of Legends, knows so much players, that it's hard to replace. Peter Dunn will be like, oh yeah, this guy in Brazil, he's been playing for 3 seasons and he had the MVP on the second game on the third week. He was insane in that game. You're like,
Always his damn tweets, man. Always some crazy.
Yeah, this guy watches League of Legends 15 hours a day. It's insane.
That's one thing that always impresses me about some people that you meet in the scene. It's like they I think one of my biggest weaknesses as a person is my memory. I can't remember just random things from 20 years ago. But you speak to some people and you'll mention a player offhand and they'll be like, oh yeah, just remember that one thing that they did 4.5 seasons ago with this one champion in this one game that didn't even matter in the standings. And you're like, oh, yeah, of course. How could I have forgotten? What a ridiculous thing for me to forget. It's just like you meet some of these people that have like a photogenic memory or whatever it is that just remember absolutely everything. It never ceases to impress me, which is maybe more a thing about me than it is about them. But it's definitely a talent. I want to ask...
need to have a growth mindset. It's not about talent. It's about working for it.
Yeah. But there's an extent to which you're kind of born with a good memory or not. I do feel like there's something that's less about learning and more
mnemonics and how to remember things is something you can learn and that you can have acquired without realizing through your life. It's not really talent, though. It's something that you will have gotten unconsciously, but you can make the right steps to learn how to remember a lot of things very efficiently.
So are you looking for clients as a life coach? Currently,
Not just yet. I have a big client, Fnatic.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to ask a little bit about Astralis as well. Sorry, did you have a question, Doctor?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of just jump off of some of the points you made. And you're kind of talking about a couple of the things like Peter Dunn ability to scout. Like, who are some of the coaches or analysts that you guys have inspired you or you guys look up to or admire within the scene? Like, are there certain people that you go, damn, like, I really wish I had that skill or was able to do as well as this guy has done?
It's Dagda for me.
Shucks. His ability to drink beer.
On my end, it was less so like, oh, this is what I want to know, more so like these are people that I would want to work with. Gary was on that list for sure. And then the next name in line for me was Kaze, who is now in Team Solo Mid. He had some controversy on Twitter, but honestly, who gives a shit, man? I don't give a shit.
This is
the bottom line is, sorry, what?
Is that fake?
No,
too?
That's another one. A lot of Twitter controversy. he had the thing from 2 years ago when he was doing a very nasty joke.
Okay.
Whatever. Yeah. Kaze his track record has been really, really insane. Like looking at, like he went from team to team, and whatever team he was on, sure it was a big organization, but he had a very good impact. And then in Vitality, I worked with someone called Dan, and the three roles is just acquiring data and statistical analysis and so forth. And this is something that, in terms of, I can make a Google sheet, and I can, make a list for my purchases, some basic shit, that's as far as my programming skills go. So this is something that I don't know, and probably I won't ever learn, because there's just so many more people out there that are better at me. But in terms of, who I would love to work with in a staff, that's why I'm super excited to work with Gary, because he was always on this fucking list. I heard about his resume, and that to me naturally, in terms of what I can learn to improve in my position, that's information that I want to have, and at the same time cover things that I know are necessary in the team. Because I've been in esports for so long, and I had a coach back in season 3, but this coach was a big fucking joke. This was not the coach. He was telling me, yo, this guy played with this rune, you should probably try it. And that's it. I was like, why? I don't know. He's a good
Just
player.
give it a go, mate. Just give it a go.
Yeah. So that was to the extent of the coaching that I
Sounds
received
good.
as a player. It sounds fantastic. And then it turns out that the rune choice was wrong, because, I remember the specific instance. My coach was telling me, you should go gold pretend runes. I was like, why? He's like, Elements or Alliance, I don't know, I remember what they were at the time. They're like, they always lane swap. So if you have gold pretend runes, money. He was doing the money sign. This is how you convince people. You make a money
Were you
sign.
playing
right?
Gangplank at the time? Like
I was
full
playing
Gangplank?
Lulu. I was playing Lulu top. And then they pick away Zed. I go Lulu top. Was my secret counter. He's like, go GP10 runes. I'm like, they're not going to lane swap. When they are playing fucking Zed top, they're not going to lane swap. He's like, no, they will lane swap. Okay, I trust him. Then I'm laning against the Zed. And this was OP Zed with GP10 runes. And the game was obviously fucking hard, and we lose. And not because of me, honestly. We're just a shit team. But this was like the interactions I was having with my coach. And then when I began to coach, I was nutritionist. I was, I was psychologist. I was strategist. I had to cover every single thing, because that was where esports was at the time. And with time, you begin to specialize, and I want to be in the role of management, and in terms of dealing with people, working with people, and focusing on the game and people and everything else around it. There's so much more around it, and I know that Gary is a fucking expert when it comes to these things. And when it comes to my list, it was Gary, Kaze, Peter Dunn. These are 3 people that I've genuinely wanted to work with. Other than that, there's nothing really that stands out to me. They're just like players that I would want to work with. Like working with Faker, it would be like a dream of mine.
I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just flex on you real quick.
That's why I'm getting that secondhand experience. I'm siphoning off
This
of you
is-
right now.
This is the Parisian experience that I've been talking about. I'm joking.
Is this the hand that shook Baker? Is this the one? Is this
Let me bask in your aura.
But I'm very much like, Yamato. There are people I'm interested in working with. I actually also was interested in Case. When I started as an analyst, he was the gold standard. He had just come off, finals with Fnatic when I started working with Splice. And he was the first person I contacted in the scene when I started working on Splice, to inquire about how he was working, which kind of tools he was using, stuff like this. But personally, I don't really look at people. I look at skills. And, I try to see which skills I can acquire. Because for me, that's the goal. I'm not idealizing anybody. Every different person has a different set of skills. And what you can ask yourself is, how did they get there? How did they learn all that? What kind of situation pushed them to learn the skills? And for me, that's what's interesting. There are players who are at the very top. And I'm always asking myself, how did they get there? How did they learn the skills that made them so good? Because what can we reproduce from that? That's what I'm interested in. I don't believe a lot in talent and latent potential. For me, it's a lot about what can we do again? What can we reproduce with other players, with myself? how can I get that and be the chameleon and learn from those other people that have succeeded, what to learn from there.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% for sure. Again, in terms of how I approached coaching for the first time, since coaching in the West wasn't really a thing, what I did was I just did a lot of research on traditional sports coaches that I know were really successful in their field. So it's the Phil Jackson, the Vince Lombardis, and the Jose Mourinho's, and the Ancelottis, and the Fergusons, and the list is very long because I don't have a body of work to research to see, what kind of mistakes they've done. And in the end, I think a big portion of how successful teams are, it's how the culture is built, and this is something that applies in any group environment, whether it's in tech or Silicon Valley or a NFL or NBA. It's always how the group dynamic functions, and I think there's a lot of avenues to learn from. I know that Gary, he mentioned that he worked in Ubisoft, but he's also been in the military doing up the business. There's experience and there are things to learn from in almost every walk of life that you can apply in some shape or form in what you're doing in the future. And I think any type of positive experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be positive. You can make it positive, even though it might have been a rough experience, can help to prepare you for what's to come. And I think in the end, I don't know how I'm supposed to round this off.
So
can
I ask you a
get
question to try and round off the topic?
Yes.
So for the people at home that are listening, because you guys obviously are both very successful in your own rights, and you're both talking about you just got to improve. You got to look at each of your experiences as a learning moment, and that's what you're looking for in players as well. It's people that have improved over time and people that have excelled. When it comes to doing that, if you're someone that hasn't been doing that their entire life, what is the advice you would give to these people to begin this process to being a person that is, leveling up off of every bad experience they have?
I think it's so hard sometimes, and at the same time very easy for people to set a big goal, I want to win worlds. It's very easy to say that, but it's all about every single moment in your life, every day, every minute, how you're using it. And that thought alone can be very, very overwhelming. But I think it is important to have a picture of what your ideal self would be.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, what I would suggest is to just make a schedule. Don't be cruel to yourself. Make a schedule that makes sense. You don't have to be cruel. It doesn't have to be 100% efficient day. You need to be, doing things actively to push yourself forward every moment in the day. That's going to be very overwhelming and very exhausting. But instead, make minor progress. It's all about minor progress. There's been this meme from Jordan Peterson where he says, clean your room. I think there's a sense behind that because you can actively see progress in front of you. And I think taking small steps, let's say you have a schedule, you do 1% of that schedule. That's already an improvement. And then maybe the next day you do 0%, but then you look back at it and you say, okay, I'm going to try to do 2% of my ideal schedule. Then eventually, when you are rewarding yourself for that small growth, that minor growth, and you are moving in the direction you want to be moving in, that's where you want to be. You just want movement. You don't want every day to look the same. And sometimes that movement can be very, very small, but that movement can be very meaningful. Let's say someone wants to exercise. Just going for a walk, just going for a walk is already fantastic. It's a start. Cleaning your room is very simple. It's very visual in terms of how progress is showing for yourself. So it's very therapeutic because I think as human beings, we feel good when we, have progress, at least in my experience. I'm not saying this from a scientific point of view. This is just from what I've researched and what I've experienced myself. So I think paint a picture of what the ideal person is, ideal version of yourself is, like what do you want to achieve. Make a schedule that will progress you in that direction, and then don't punish yourself. And start small. Go for a walk, clean your room, write a message to your grandmother. She's bored. Maybe write a message. Just do something to move yourself in the right direction.
Sorry, that just tickled me because the grandmother thing seemed like a completely different topic to me. She's bored, by the way.
But really, sometimes people want to connect with their family, and that's also something that's important. And
I agree. It was just everything else seemed very much like personal progress related. It was like, by the way, you haven't spoken to your grandmother in like 2 weeks, so just call her. Yeah, just a quick reminder.
I think the biggest thing as well is having a learning mindset with that. Just because if you don't have the right mindset to kind of go, hey, look, maybe this solo queue game went absolutely shite. My bot lane went 0-10. Like, there was nothing I can do. There's always something that you can improve on. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that even in the shit moments, it's okay, well, how can I improve in and of myself? And then maybe I can make something of this shit moment.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think that's where Yamato and I, go well together. Yamato was very practical in day-to-day advices. You should do things step by step. And if I had to answer this question directly, I would have said, for me, what matters, is the mindset. It's how you see things. As long as you see things the right way, as long as you realize every single skill can be acquired, just that it can be a possibility, then nothing else really matters. As long as you realize you can, be on Faker's level, it's a possibility, it exists. Then you can work towards it. You can make the right efforts towards it. That's why I think we joined. Yamato has the right practical approach to it, and I'm more focusing on the overarching strategy and overarching philosophy of the thing. I think that's where we go all together. Because I would have answered the same thing, but just not with the same point of view.
Yes. I think also to add, we are living in a day and age. If you have access to the internet, you have access to the world's biggest library. And I mentioned earlier that I'm probably not going to learn to code, but I could, right? I have that option because, maybe it sounds like I have a big ego now, but it's accessible. That information is right there. Like, I have access to Harvard classes for free if I would want to have access to that, right? And in the end, I think the mindset portion is very, very important. Like, if you don't have that in place, you're not moving anywhere. Like, as Gary mentioned in the beginning, or not the beginning, but earlier, like, change needs to come from within. And there are certain things that are going to spark that change. Like, sometimes you hear that one sentence that like really, rings a bell within you, and you just, it's fuel for your soul forever. Like, there's this sentence that really spoke to me. It's like, conquer the enemy within, and the enemy of outside will do you no harm. I don't even know where it comes from anymore, but I could probably Google it up and find out. But that sentence in itself has that really put something in me that worked. And sometimes finding that right fuel for the soul can invoke the right mindset within you. It's all about just exploring, because maybe 100 people right now, 127 people are listening to this. Maybe one person this makes sense to. Maybe one person, maybe zero. Maybe for someone else it makes sense. It's all about just actively pursuing something. You can't be passive about it, because I think that's when you start to land in a routine, and every day begins to like melt together. Then the year passes, another year passes, and that's okay. Sometimes that happens, but it's all about now and forward.
And if you want somewhere that you can get that active learning, Yamato has a great YouTube channel where he does reviews that I'm using this as a shameless plug, but I actually genuinely have used them a lot myself. Even when I'm still in the LPL, he does really good reviews. So if anyone wants to check them out, I'd highly, highly recommend.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were about to say like, brilliant.com, the sponsor of this video, by the way.
Brilliant.com if you're listening, or Skillshare if you're listening.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god, great segue.
Thinking of quotes, that affected us. For me, it would be a quote that's like Yamato. It's Anatole France from Le Jardin d'Épicure. In French, it is "Je tiens mon imperfection comme à ma raison d'être," which is, my imperfection is important to me, as my reason of existing. And like, it's because you're imperfect that you exist. It's only to grow better, to try and perfect yourself every single day. You'll forever be imperfect, and that's why you live. You're always trying to thrive for the next big thing, for that next level that doesn't exist. When I was talking about the Übermensch from Yamato, it's the same. You want to try and go as far as you can, and always have this mindset that you can go to that next level.
Should probably drop the word Übermensch before you come to Germany, brother, because it's a dangerous word to say.
In terms of psychology, it's okay. Like,
all right,
it's okay.
I just made a crude joke.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of psychology, it's a great book.
Yes.
Before it had all this shitty, terrible meaning.
Yeah.
So I guess the conclusion to that is like, if you were to be perfect, you would have nothing to work towards, and therefore, working towards perfection is the meaning there that you can find along the way.
Yeah.
Also, just to kind of follow up on this, I told this story last time, but like that pursuit often leads to opportunities that you never even know existed. Like for me, I was trying to because my background is finance, right? I got a business degree, so I was reading like Richard Branson's what's it called? I got it up there. Where is it? Oh, Screw It, Let's Do It. Sorry, I've got a bookshelf up above me. Screw It, Let's Do It by Richard Branson. And that was the reason that I got into casting, was I just read it. He was like, say yes, figure out how to do it later. And then I said yes to casting when I did not want to. And then I ended up, now I'm casting the LPL because I just kind of followed along. So I think these pursuits oftentimes end up in places that you never even expected them to wind up. And it can just have such a big improvement on your life.
Yeah. That's the same for me. I didn't know I was going to coach 6 years ago. I had no fucking clue. And then I was like, you want to coach?
Just looking for that paycheck.
Well, let me coach. I'm going to just practice solo queue. I was better than our top laner at the time. Like, our top laner was not that good. I was way better. But I was like, yeah, fuck, I want to coach. It's okay. And then I fell in love. And that was like the worst experience you could possibly have. Like we got auto-relegated.
All in love?
It was the Meet Your Mother team.
Oh yeah.
Where maybe you guys know the story.
M.
Yes.
Which I'm not sure if I do know the story, but
man, barely I know the story.
You were hoping that we knew the story.
Yeah.
Fucking our manager threatened to take away a player's house, and it was just
Jesus.
Well, that's a short version.
Yeah, dude, I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere. We have the
Yes.
power of Google. Yeah. So, guys, if you want to hear more, crack it in Google. Or Bing, or Ask Jeeves, whatever your search engine of choice is.
Jeeves.
Go on Yahoo, very popular in Japan.
No.
Yahoo nearly crashed, but they kept alive. They're okay. They still exist. So I wanted to ask a question from chat. Comes from Ellie. This is the same question as last week. Just a question of way back at the start, what was it that got you into esports in the first place? What was the thing that like actually turned it over from, hey, I like playing video games, to, hey, maybe I can actually turn this into a career? What was the thing that bridged that gap for you?
Fly, Gary. This is all you, man. Mine is
Oh
the generic.
God, that's gonna be a long one.
Long one's fine.
When I started,
that's what this is about.
For me, it was like when I started being competitive in video games. It was even before esports even existed as a concept. Like when I was playing with my dad, Age of Empires, I was 10 years old. I was like, if I can be better, like why wouldn't I be? I enjoy doing this. Why shouldn't I be better? For me, that's what the whole mindset. And then I play Mario Kart DS. And I had a team where, like, in the top teams in the world, I was top 30 in time attack. That's why I got into competitive gaming. Then I discovered fighting games. I played that for 10 years. And then I discovered PC games. Then I got to StarCraft 2, League of Legends, and all that kind of shit. And I love esports. I love, the whole competition aspect. There's no bullshit. It's only about being the best and, finding the right way to win. That's what I love about sports and esports in general. It's not about anything else than improving. I also did, lots of traditional sports. In hockey, we're second in France when I was a teenager. I always loved competition, and even, for university entry, for me, I saw it as a competition. For me, it's a game. There are 500 seats. How do you get in there? What's the right strategy to get in there? For me, everything has always always been about the right type of competition. So for me, what brought me in is just this mindset. It's only about the performance and how you can find the right way to succeed. And if I wasn't in esports, I'd be doing something similar, because I did put esports on the back burner for my regular studies. I did put a big focus on finishing studies first, and I did graduate from a good university in France. And if I wasn't into esports, I'd be still in the video game industry, because something that speaks to me a lot. I think I learned a lot from video games. One of the reasons why I succeeded on the educational side of things is video games. I always had this approach, to find the right way to succeed without spending as much time at the others, just, finding, the OP champion, the OP way to learn only the information that matter and nothing else. So even if I wasn't in esports, I'd still be in the video game sphere, because, the being in, immersed in video games for all my life is one of the reasons why I think I've been able to succeed even on the educational aspect of things.
Nice. That's an inspirational story. Thank you. Yamato, what about you? How did you get into esports?
Now, on my end, I've always like growing up. I was pretty lonely as a kid, and I spent a lot of time with myself. I was always alone, and I had this vision in my mind that regardless of what I'm gonna do, I'm going to be I want to be the pioneer in that line of work. I want to leave a legacy. I want to be immortal. And I remember having these thoughts. Basically, I was working with my father. So basically, I went to school and then I had to work with my father and so forth. And then I gave you guys the whole story of me playing with the laptop in the bed hiding because my father was against gaming. My vision was always that I just wanted to, be immortal, and I'm not gonna let anyone define me. To work through all of the bullshit of the day to day that I had to deal with it at school at the time, and gaming and esports definitely gave me an avenue for that, because I used to play World of Warcraft Arena at a decent level. I wouldn't say great level. I wasn't one of the best, and
what expansion? What rating?
This was the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. I have a couple of Gladiator titles, but I was just a kid back then, and I don't know, 12 or some shit. Warcraft 3 I played as well. I could competed decently with my brother, and we were playing Warcraft 3, and then League of Legends came along, and the opportunity was so ripe. I saw that the game is quite new at the time. My friends were playing it, and that's usually how you get influenced to play new games. And I had this vision for what the game could be. I think a big part of why I began to believe in esports so much was because I saw, I was CS is pretty good in Sweden, and DreamHack and so forth. So it made the whole idea of esports feel a lot more real than possibly it was at the time, because I made most of my money elo boosting, I'm not gonna lie, at the time, because the tournament organizers kind of scammed you out of it. But nevertheless, I played League, I was good at it, and I started competing. There was the goal for lols and so forth, and it felt very, very real. And this idea of building a legacy and really, really, being a pioneer in something felt this felt like this is the route to do it. Gaming has always been a part of my life. I remember when I was 5, I was playing Diablo 1. That was my first game. Probably not the best game for a kid, but it worked out. So,
it is what it is.
Try it out. Try it out with your baby, maybe. No, I'm just...
if you want the next YamatoCannon, just train him up on Diablo. That's the conclusion for this episode.
And then just to finalize the story, esports, it felt like it could be, I could be a pioneer in this. This is going to become something big. And then I heard the rumors about how a league is going to be made, and there's going to be money involved, there's going to be a salary. And ever since that rumor came about, I knew, this is what I want my life to be. So I chased it ever since, and I was lucky that both my mother and my brother both play games, and they've played games for as long as I remember. Like my mother still plays World of Warcraft and Hearthstone, and my brother does too. They don't have like mechanics, but they play games. So it definitely helped to against the polarizing. Like my father, it's very like hard work, no emotion. His mind, you could legit slot his mind into some man from 400 years ago, and he would just fit right in there. He would just that's where he's from, right? So it was polarizing, but at the same time, the perfect balance. I'm happy that I got to work in like the car mechanics shop and work with my father. At the time, I hated it because I thought it was just better for me to play games, but it also taught me very important values. So I am very, very fortunate, and to see sports open it up as an opportunity, and I've chased it ever since.
And clearly the work ethic rubbed off on you as well. Like, that's very evident.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, unless Dagda, you had any other topics you want to hit on?
No, I'm just laughing at... Oh, sorry, go on ahead, Tolki.
I was going to say, in terms of esports, I'm also a bit idealistic, but I feel like esports as a thing, as a concept, is something that's actually very important and is going to become very important for like everybody in the next few years. I think in terms of work, people are going to work less and less. Like, we don't need to work as much to cover our basic needs. We have the means of production to all live decent lives in the world. I feel like we're going to need entertainment in between, watching TV and trying your best to become the best person you can be, which is what esports is. What is the most inspiring? Like, if we're going to offer entertainment to people, what is going to make them want to succeed? What is going to make them, want to surpass themselves and get better? And that's one of the reasons why I love esports. It's a form of entertainment that still is about, trying to motivate people, trying to make them want to surpass themselves, trying to make them want to break their limits. And I think, that's of an active entertainment that we're offering people. And I really like this aspect of esports, trying to be inspiring of everybody who's watching.
All right. Well, that I think is a perfect message to end the episode with. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I want to give you guys an opportunity to shout out anything you're doing right now, whether it's YouTube channels or whatever it is. We'll go Yamato, then Tolki, then Dagda, and then we'll round out the show.
Yo, everybody, subscribe to, is it the Munchables YouTube channel? Is that what you're uploading? Or is there a Bevvies with the Boys YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Where are the buttons? Below in the corner.
Yeah. Whichever platform you're watching on, click on the button. There's usually a button.
This is the good content. This is the good content.
Thank you,
when you notice, when you like, for the people out there, when you notice like people showing up, like a lot of people showing up, like they've had some hard hitters on the show, right? Then you know that the personalities also enjoy it. It's the same with like interviewers and journalists and talk shows in general. You notice which is in which ones people actively want to do it or when they don't want to do it. And this was a lot of fun. So I just give a shout out to you guys, because in the season I'm just gonna be working. I'm gonna be like a ostrich with my head under the ground, but in that ground is the Fnatic gaming house. So I won't be available anywhere. So just stick to this channel. One of these guys get hammered every week.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll hit you up after MSI, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I've got I'm thinking about it. Tolki, your turn, mate.
Same here, Please subscribe here, above or below the subscribe button. And that's about it. We'll be working with Fnatic all year long. So what matters is this podcast, 2 hours of great quality content, and that's all you need.
Thank you very much.
Right.
And some, beer history of Japan, of course.
Yeah, thank you for the lessons. Thank you for teaching us a little bit about the beer history of Japan. Appreciate that.
Just a scam to fake competition is what I heard.
Yeah.
Same company. Jesus.
Not anymore.
This one was the same
Not
company.
anymore.
Hopefully we can do a repeat
And
of
this
this.
one used to be too.
Hopefully we can do a repeat performance of this in Shanghai when Fnatic make it to Worlds next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
When
we'll
you
see you
guys
guys
bring the
in
beers.
Shanghai.
You guys
Yeah.
are gonna buy the beers.
I'll cover that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Nice. You're gonna get a Bud Light sponsor then. I might have to pass. You know.
I don't
Do
know
you know-
much about Chinese beers, honestly, but I'm curious.
I was buying this in the co-op earlier today, and this was not refrigerated already, and there was Budweiser in the fridge, and I was like, do I sink that low for the sake of refrigeration?
It's good marketing though.
The answer was evident.
Sponsorship.
Like, Budweiser, if you want to sponsor me, I'm willing to sell out. You've got the best beer ever, I promise. But that aside, we're going to close out the show. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Dagdo, as always, thanks for joining me as well. We'll be out on YouTube and Spotify and everything else, so go check that out. Please do follow Tolki. Please do follow YamatoCannon. Guys,
Cheers,
thank
man.
you so much for joining us. And we'll close out the show. So thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next time.